We're at 3,400 feet almost. When you see this, what goes through your head?
The tour bus was headed southbound on Interstate 87 to New York City when suddenly it veered off the road right up there, crashed through the guardrails, and then rolled into the median.
For the past 2 weeks, people have been dropping off the tires that they don't need anymore to designated locations around the state. All that with the hope that if they don't need them, somebody else will.
State police say before the plane crashed right here in Highgate on the interstate, someone parachuted out.
The fog has rolled in, but we made it to the summit.
That's right. The Shazy Reef we're walking on predates coral reefs.
It was not right, where we are sitting here today in Vermont,
right.
but the landmass itself was actually below the equator down near where Africa
the whole
was.
Pangea thing
right,
back
with
in the day?
with the moving of the continents.
About 2 miles up, we're going to jump out of the plane.
Well, Darren and Kristen, I just spoke with the state's hazmat chief who says they've figured out what caused the incident this afternoon. They say it was this can of bear repellent. They say it's a kind of a pepper spray. Now, the good news is that means this was not as serious as they had feared when employees were evacuated this afternoon. The end of Avenue C in Williston was shut down for the afternoon Tuesday as state and local emergency responders worked to contain a hazmat situation. Around noon, fire officials told us they got the call about a chemical release at the Chittenden Solid Waste District recycling building. They shut all the doors and killed the power to the building to contain the situation.
We went ahead and closed down the adjacent facilities and made sure that people were away from any possible exposure. It might have been downwind.
Officials with the plant told us the culprit was likely fumes from an aerosol can that exploded on the conveyor belt where Casella employees sort through the recyclables. 25 people were affected and 12 were taken to the hospital.
Symptoms were headache, eye watering, nausea, and in a couple of cases vomiting.
Fire officials say in the time that it took to set up this scene, most of the employees started feeling better. About 40 to 50 work at this plant, and everyone was evacuated for the afternoon. The Chittenden Solid Waste District is now reminding people to be careful about what they put into their recycling bins.
If you're in doubt of what you're throwing into a recycling can, please call us. Please do not just put hazardous waste such as chemicals, pesticides, paints, those kind of things, because this is the incident that occurs once that happens.
Now, the hospital tells us that 9 of the 12 patients have been treated and released so far, and the state's hazmat team says that this was their largest civilian decontamination response ever, and it went very well. Now, as for the facility here, it's expected to reopen as usual tomorrow morning. Darren and Kristen. It takes a lot of manpower and strategy to herd geese.
So we're all basically going to be moving this way. This is where the pen is, the red X. And we're going to try and move the birds into this pen.
They're all up. I can see them all.
Goose wrangling is an annual tradition here at the Dead Creek Wildlife Refuge in Addison.
Corralling geese is pretty easy this time of year because the birds are flightless and they have goslings with them, so the goslings can't fly.
It's a gradual process that takes a lot of coordination. Volunteers close off the escape routes by land and by water in a canoe. The geese waddle through the field towards the pen in a surprisingly orderly fashion.
Looks like the birds are headed towards the fence line at this point.
They stall, waiting by the fence. That's when the volunteers close in.
They definitely get a little stressed when they're approaching the pen and they see us coming in on them.
One by one, the geese file into the pen, taking their time. Once the last gosling steps through, the gate is quickly closed.
I'm going to need someone strong and burly and maybe with a little bit of stamina to get in the pit with the birds.
Once the birds are scooped out of the pen, they're handed to volunteers who bring them over to the banding station.
15 is a local male.
Biologists note the sex and age of the birds and fit each goose with a metal band that has a unique number.
56 local female.
This is like a social security number for geese, so the biologists can track them if they're caught again or shot and reported in by hunters.
The data from these geese will actually go into a national database. They can track where the geese go, how the population is, and how healthy they are.
It's sort of like doing hands-on science. They get an opportunity to interact with biologists who work for the state and learn about the wildlife in their area. They get a chance to actually interact closely with the wildlife, which is, I think, a very valuable experience and really gets people to appreciate the nature that's around them.
One thing they did actually notice from the data is that the snow geese are actually moving over to New York more because a lot of the agriculture practices in New York leave leftover corn for them to eat, and that's something that, of course, that attracts them there. So actually in the Dead Creek Wildlife Area there, they actually try to leave some extra corn so that they can continue to have those populations there.
That's interesting.
Was it really difficult, Kat, to hold the geese down? It looked like it didn't want to.
The goose was wiggling, and you're trying to hold it and talk, and